Fukushima, the complete real story. Hi, this is W0TM, also Wodum, if you prefer it that way. W0TM are my hand-radio call letters. Well, they just got up. They must have heard me. On the left, introducing my dog, Blaze. Like you'll go back to sleep, maybe. He's a mixed border collie, and on the right, that just took off, was our daughter's dog, Chester, over here visiting. I'll turn the camera a bit so you can have something to watch, and Blaze can take a look back at you. Anyway, serious subject, and I'm going to probably get myself in a whole lot of trouble, but that's nothing new for me. I get myself in a lot of trouble pretty easy. And at my age, I really don't care. I tell the truth. I tell everything I know. If I'm wrong, I want people to tell me that. If I've missed something, I want you to tell me that. If I've done anything wrong, I want you to tell me. I just do the best I can. And this is a serious channel. If you're looking for, comedy or anything that, unfortunately, quite frankly, UFOs, ETs, aliens being abducted, you're being abducted, stuff like that, stuff that tends to draw a lot of viewers. I can see a spaceship landed in my backyard, and that, if I wrote that down, I'd probably get 100,000 views, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell the truth. Fukushima, the real story. I'm going to try to do this as much from memory as I can. Don't have anything written down, so let's see if I get it all correct. I've been writing a book on this, and don't have it finished yet, and I don't know when I'm going to finish it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a YouTube video on it, and a book may or may not follow. I've got a couple of good friends. One of them that's still in the Fukushima area, that is essentially giving his life to let the world know that they're suffering over there. He's already been radiated about 500 times more than it takes to die. And also I have a couple that's friends of mine that are in London, that I have finally talked them into staying in London. Their family still lives in Japan. I am doing all I can to talk them into, getting out of there and moving to London with them, but haven't done it, and probably too late now to do much, although they live south quite a bit down near Tokyo, although the entire island of Japan has been radiated. So, if you anywhere in that vicinity, you have a big problem. Anyway, here's what happened at Fukushima. It was not an act. It was not an act of nature. It was not an earthquake. It was not an accidental tsunami or something that just happened. It was an act of man, and I'm going to explain how and why. I'm going to incriminate the leaders of 5 major countries. Now, if that doesn't get me in trouble, I don't know what else will. So I think I'll probably get this video done, uploaded, and I'll go hide somewhere. Anyway, if people tend to have a habit of remembering the news of today, yesterday, maybe last week. My wife must be home, I guess. So dogs ran out somewhere. Anyway, in 2009, President Obama became president January 20th, 2009. Up until then, starting clear back with President Reagan, he had a treaty with the country of Japan, telling them if you do not go nuclear, in other words, if you don't come up with nuclear bombs, which would even more destabilize that area of the world, we will, upon your request, all you got to do is say, we want them and you got them. If you feel in danger, we will put ICBM rockets on your west coast to protect you. If you feel in danger from China or North Korea or whoever, we'll do it. And that was renewed by George Bush, #1, and Bill Clinton, and also George W. Bush. They all did it. And President Obama, really, he wasn't asked. They should have, because they had a rude awakening. What happened was, in 2010, North Korea, they were all, they were told, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Well, of course, they did it. I can't remember when, the dictator #1 died, but his son, had to, make a big deal that, he was in charge now and so forth. So he may have decided to shoot some rockets off. And one of the rockets he shot off, one of the ICBMs, went directly over the island of Japan. That was a no-no. The island of the country of Japan had warned them, do not do that. We'll consider it to be an act of war. Well, that's kind of overstating it, because when they say this will be an act of war, when they say that, they usually don't go to war, but they say it anyway. So they shot the rocket over, and Japan immediately went to the United States and said, okay, we activate this part of the treaty. We want those ICBMs, those or anti-ballistic missiles, I guess they're actually called anti-ballistic missiles, as opposed to ICBMs, anti-ballistic missiles, on our western coast to protect our country from North Korea, particularly, who has just fired a missile that went right over our country that could have done us a lot of damage. And what did President Obama do? He came back and said, I don't think I'll do that. No. He had just been elected, as you remember. One of his platforms was to be the peace candidate. Well, it hasn't worked out, because we've been in more wars with more American deaths and more deaths of foreigners, Muslims, everybody. There's been more fighting by far. There's something like 60 wars going on at this very moment. So you really can't say that President Obama, who's been in office now for a long time, has fulfilled his campaign promise of being the president of peace. He certainly didn't do that. But at the time he did, he needed to keep his one of his bases on his side. The base, the ones that were peace at all costs, don't go to war no matter what, roll over and play dead type of thing. He said, we're not going to do that. We are not going to put missiles on your western coast. Japan, in anticipation of that, thinking ahead, it's always smart to think ahead. I don't need to tell you that. Building number 3 at Fukushima nuclear plant. I happen to know quite a bit about that because I believe my brother-in-law, who is now unfortunately passed away, was a PhD nuclear engineer, civil engineer, University of Arkansas, and he had a side business that he worked for various companies, including General Electric. General Electric, that was their design. And I'll just, as an aside, very poor design. There are 42 of those designs in the United States. That ought to give you some scares right there, because a lot of safety features had been were pulled out of the design that Jim, my brother-in-law, did. saying that well, we needed to pull it out because of this and that, and the truth was that they pulled it out to make more money and also for overseas to be able to bribe foreign countries. And just fact of life. If GE wants to get all uptight about it, that's fine. But they did that and built it in for free. The entire Fukushima plant, the entire thing is very kind of tinker toyish construction, just not well built. And what happened was that at the same time, a lot of things going on all at once. Moscow, President Putin has an agreement with the president of Iran, and the United States at the same time is telling him, don't do that, we're going to get upset, So, and nobody ever gets upset to do anything, except do sanctions, whatever those are. Vladimir Putin had agreed to weaponize nuclear fissionable material for the country of Iran to use in nuclear weapons. Guess who they were planning to use them on? They had already, I think, I'm not positive, obtained ICBMs, 5 of them. I think they already had those ready to go, and I think, I'm not positive, but I believe they had obtained 5 built, constructed, all ready to go, nuclear bombs, also bought from Russia. That's kind of, there's not too much expertise left in Russia for nuclear construction anyway. So I'm not sure, if they would have, if they had worked, if they ever tried. But anyway, Vladimir Putin, there he is, in 2010. He's got a reported $1 trillion contract. It might not have been that much, but it was a lot of money by Iran to provide them weaponized nuclear fissionable material that could go in the nuclear bombs that would go kaboom when the ICBMs pointed at most likely Israel, hit Jerusalem and Bethlehem and so forth, and vaporize the country. Probably wouldn't get that far, the rockets wouldn't, but they'd certainly try. And before then, the country of Iran by Israel would probably be turned into a sheet of glass by the nuclear weapons that Israel, of course, denies they have nuclear weapons, but actually they have a large number of them, and bombers and missiles and everything else to deliver them to get through the Iranian defenses. No trouble at all. They would destroy Iran. There wouldn't be anything left if that happened. So, but what happened then was a Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, the elite, headed up by the Rothschild family. The country of Israel could more likely be called Rothschild country, and it was given to Rothschild, but they had to populate with people, so they did, and they populated it with Jewish people, who Rothschilds are Jewish, and or at least they say they are, and they went to Putin and said to Putin, if you continue to do this, we are going to shake Moscow to the ground. Well, how are they going to do that? Well, I won't go into detail. I'm going to do a later YouTube on my activities with an inventor called Nikola Tesla. I was a disciple of his. I was born after he died, but I've read everything he ever wrote, and by having a top secret security clearance with the AEC way back when, I was able to look at and read everything the man ever wrote, including the stuff that's now been destroyed, and I know it all. Will I ever disclose much of it or anything? Probably not. I've given it to people younger than me because if it was given now, things like anti-gravity, free energy, just things that would it would advance the world 1,000 years. Unfortunately, it would fall into the hands of the wrong people, the bad guys, and that's not good. So it's going to have to pass unless everything gets straightened out in the next couple of years, next 10 years before I go. It's going to have to come from somebody else. So even though I know all these things, they're not going to come from me. People that are 30 years old are in our small but very technically, I call it savvy, group of Nikola Tesla inventions and knowledge and so on and so forth. The information that is not published has been destroyed. I have personally passed that on to these individuals, and these individuals will go unnamed for obvious reasons, and they will hopefully someday come forth when the world is populated only with good people and move the world like 500 to 1,000 years ahead by doing anti-gravity, time travel, travel at the speed of close to infinity, just free energy, all kinds of things that Nikola Tesla, he had the keys to the universe. I'm going to be doing a YouTube video on Nikola Tesla later on, so I won't go too far more into that. At that point in time, Putin, before he had a chance to do much of anything, he knew that Rothschilds didn't beat around the bush. The Rothschilds said, okay, well, we're going to prove it to you. We know how to, because it came from, unfortunately, I helped invent it back in the 60s, and I am very sorry I did that, or at least laid the groundwork for it, being able to send a pinpoint earthquake through the earth from one point to another, thousands of miles. And Rothschild did that. If you go back and look in history in 2010, look at earthquakes. Haiti, the country of Haiti, was shaken to the ground. Something like 200,000 people were killed. I mean, it was or injured. I mean, it was a huge number. On the same island, the island of Hispaniola, is the country of Dominican Republic. You look at pictures of the Dominican Republic, and it's the same darn island, and there are very few even roof tiles budged on that Dominican Republic. That is not possible. And you look at a graph chart of the earthquake, and it's more of a bomb. It's not an earthquake, and plus an earthquake puts out 2.5 hertz approximately audio tone that you and I can't hear, because humans cannot hear that low in frequency. Whales can hear that, elephants can hear that, certain other animals, but people cannot. So it was a pinpoint man-made earthquake, went through the ground, hit Haiti, shook it to the ground. Putin said, oh my gosh, okay, no more, we're done. Just as well, because most likely the USSR has been so depleted of nuclear engineers headed out to other places that they probably weren't coming up with anything anyway, and they were going to have to produce for something. They were going to have to produce something for Iran, and they couldn't get it done. So it was probably saving grace for them. Then along comes Japan. Japan had been secretly building number 3 in Fukushima. They had set that up special, build it special to be able to weaponize nuclear material on very short notice if they ever needed to do that. They didn't trust. They said, well, there's going to be new presidents, and someday we might have somebody, what turned out, President Obama, that reneged on the treaty, and so they needed the nuclear fissional material, and that's why building number 3 was so packed tight with all kinds of fissionable material in the ceiling and the walls, and there's a long story that goes with that. The security group that had the contract for Fukushima, guess where it was from? It's from Israel, and it was funded by Rothschilds. How crazy can you get? When that happened, Japan said, "Hey, wait a minute." They went to Putin and said, "We'd like to have that contract." Well, Iran was over in Japan and just nothing flat, and Iran took millions and millions and millions of dollars with them in cash and gold and everything else. This time around, spread it liberally to politicians and members of TEPCO, which is the Tokyo Electric Power Company, so forth, because they knew that the president of Iran would be still wanting his fissionable material from Japan, but Rothschild will find out one way or the other. Even though they went in Japan, they went real fast. They didn't go fast enough, because Rothschild goes to the head of Japan and says, the prime minister, and says, "If you don't stop right now, we are going to do bad things to Japan." Well, what they intended to do, I believe, was just to destroy Fukushima. This is now March. We're now looking at March 11th, 2011, the date when the supposed earthquake happened and the tsunami. Russia, not Russia, I'm sorry, Rothschilds planted 2 nuclear weapons, small charges, one 50 miles northwest of Fukushima, one of them 50 miles in the ocean, southeast of Fukushima, set to go off, and they had calculated that would cause a tremor at Fukushima that would just destroy Fukushima. They didn't know that Fukushima was as brittle as it was, and so on and so forth. They thought they would just take it offline, and Japan would get the message, and that would be the end of that, and Iran would not get the fissionable material, and life would go on. Well, what happened was, things happened. Even the big, important, super rich, trillionaire Rothschilds, nobody looked to see that there was an ancient fault line, earthquake fault line, that went directly under. How can this happen? Building 3 of Fukushima extended to the northwest, right where that bomb was placed, and to the southeast, right where that bomb was placed out in the ocean. So when it went off, it shifted the island of Japan. The island of Japan moved 10 feet. It broke loose from the mantle. The island of Japan today is a lot more serious than anyone knows, because it is broken loose from the mantle. It is floating just like a hockey puck on a sheet of ice. It's broken loose from the mantle down below. That's not good. So the earthquake happened. What you saw was an actual nuclear event, a small one, but still it was a full-scale nuclear explosion. The problem is still getting worse over there. The radiation level in the world in general has exactly doubled since 2011. It's set to double every 3 years for infinity. So, and there are other problems going on as well. And if building 4, which is the big problem right now, if it topples, which is possible, we're going to have a full-scale nuclear event, which will be, where you have the huge mushroom cloud, and it's calculated to be something like 5,000 times the size of the Hiroshima nuclear explosion that took place in 1945, it will be such that may even cause a nuclear winter over part of the world. And so the world in general is in major trouble. But what happened was, so there you got 5 people that were very culpable. President Obama for saying no to putting those, for not honoring that treaty. Putin for agreeing to weaponize that material and begin with. Iran for wanting to bomb Israel. Rothschild for wanting to blow up Iran. And Japan for, there are hundreds of Japanese politicians and TEPCO officials either committed suicide, hid out, lit out. There are now over 100 of them living in Japan, or living in Tokyo, I'm sorry, London in splendor, because they took their money. They all got millions of dollars in bribes, and how they can sleep at night knowing that they killed tens of thousands of their countrymen with what they did. Beside me, but that's what happened. And there's more to tell about what happened with North Korea and bombs and ICBMs and so forth, but I think I'll save that for another YouTube video. But that's the real story of Fukushima. And Fukushima is out of the news because laws were actually passed. In Japan, it is a law to, if you say anything bad about nuclear energy, it's subject up to a 10-year prison term. And that's actually occurred. 2 or 3 reporters are serving jail terms, prison terms, for talking about nuclear fission, for being told not to, but they kept writing about it. So you've got to go to www.enenews.com, www.enenews.com, to get the latest news on Fukushima. How they get the news, what's going on, I have no idea, but they're really good. And somehow or another, they get the information on what's going on in Fukushima. So if you have any questions about Fukushima, or if I messed anything up, everything I said was from memory. Memory isn't perfect these days, never has been. So if I missed anything, particularly if you have new information about Fukushima, as I say, I'm trying to write a book about it because it is one of the world's major events. It could be, it could be an ELE event, extension level event. That's what it stands for. So it could be really serious. So it warrants a book, and I'm about halfway through writing one, just not getting it done. But anyway, got the YouTube video done, and hope you learned something from it. If you have questions, comments, please write them down below. And W0TM signing off, and see you later. Take care. Bye.